Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 6:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have announcements for our upcoming meeting, and we have a very, very special proclamation this evening. Council meetings. Regular council meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, May 16th and June 6th at 6:30 p.m. Work session is scheduled for Tuesday, May 9th at 6:30 p.m. And we have a special work session Tuesday, May 30th at 4 p.m. Now, the special work session is to interview for our commissions, board positions, and that'll be held in conference room D. But all meetings of the Burnsville City Council are held here in the chambers. Now, we have a very important proclamation this evening. Members of the council and citizens of Burnsville, today we're proud to proclaim National Police Week. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Burnsville Police Department. And whereas it is well known and accepted that law enforcement is an inherently dangerous and demanding profession in which dedicated professionals knowingly place their lives in harm's way to protect others who are unable to protect themselves. And whereas the dedicated members of the Burnsville Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedom of the citizens of Burnsville. And whereas nearly 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 16,000 injuries within the United States. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. And whereas it is imperative that all citizens understand the challenges, duties, and responsibilities and sacrifices of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting citizens against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the City Council of the City of Burnsville wishes to honor all law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of their duties. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Couts, Mayor of the City of Burnsville, on behalf of the City Council, formally recognize the Burnsville Police Department for their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities and their dedication to our community, and accordingly hereby proclaim May 15th through the 21st, 2017 as National Police Week in Burnsville, Minnesota, and publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. Proclaim this second day of May 2017. And members of the City of Burnsville, I encourage you, when you see one of our officers or any officer, please take the time to thank them for their service to our community. And Chief and members of the community, we're proud of our police officers because members of the council, the Minnesota Police Chiefs Association, has recognized the Police Department of Burnsville on two different awards. But I am not going to tell everybody what that is because they're going to have a press release and I don't want to spoil that. And Chief, if you can come forward, I'd like to present you with the proclamation.
Can I invite my officers up as well?
Please, yes. And did you bring a camera?
Yes.
Oh, Dana has a camera. Come on, everybody. Shall we do it over here so that everybody can see? And then we'll have everybody in the middle over here.
Really?
Yeah. And then, we'll just stay right here. Yeah, and the council will be there and Heather.
All of blue.
And Heather and Joel. Okay, they say there has to be, can you see? I'm good. You're good. I'm not blocking you, are you? Okay.
There we go.
Facebook and
No pressure, Dana.
No
Yeah.
pressure. On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 3.
Okay. And to all of you, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your service and for everything that you do.
Hey guys, thank you very much for getting here.
Thank you for coming.
Chief, were you gonna make a speech?
I didn't fall, so.
I didn't want to be a spoiler, Chief.
Well, you don't have to announce the awards, you just keep speaking.
And now we move on to citizens' comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not an application form that will be coming before us at a future date? Is there anyone who wishes to address the council? Seeing no one, we will move on. The next item is additions to the final agenda. Ms. Johnston, are there any emergency items?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Members of the council?
Nothing.
Okay, we then move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on the consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item on the consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Ms. Johnston?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Members of the council? Council, I would like E to be pulled for a separate discussion and vote. There's just some clarifications that I would like to have so that we are all have the same shared meaning and understanding of the ordinance that's before us. So with that, may I have a motion for the balance, please?
Motion to approve the balance?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And members of the council, this is item E is the ordinance establishing our capital facilities fund. And so there were some items that I had sent to staff, questions for clarification. And if either Ms. Stry or Ms. Who is going to be giving us?
I can start, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, members
Hardy.
of the council, my understanding is that there was some question about clarification of the ordinance, mainly because it was more non-specific. The intent of the ordinance was to continue to charge the enterprise funds for both their proportional share of the cost of the improvements made, capital improvements made to the facility, and then continue to use the franchise fees or tax levy for the general government portion of that facility. So some facilities and other operational expenses have mixed uses, which benefit both the enterprise funds and the general fund. The maintenance facility is a good example of this. There are general fund activities like parks maintenance that operate out of that building, as well as enterprise fund activities such as water, the stormwater, the water and sewer fund. Additionally, fleet operations and streets are also located in the maintenance facility, so they benefit from both types of funds. So the costs been paid by those the costs would be paid by the allocations according to the proportional share. Each year during the budget process, staff does take a look at those percentages of the proportional shares, and if adjustments are needed, they would make some adjustments. Historically, those percentages have remained consistent. So staff did not specify the percentages to allow for flexibility in the future to make changes as changes are needed or as they're being reflected. That would be done through the budget process annually. Also, in the past, the city has obtained grants or have used other available revenue sources to make facility-related improvements, and staff wanted to make sure that the ordinance would preserve this flexibility for council to continue to use those different sources in the future. So the ordinance does preserve, as it's drafted in front of you, does preserve that flexibility. In the past, there have been improvements where they've been larger than the operations could support. And council has approved using general tax levy or debt service levy to fund some of those major capital improvements. So again, the ordinance as drafted would preserve that flexibility to make future decisions for the long-term, through the long-term capital planning process. Essentially, this means then that all city facilities, at least in part, would have the ability to utilize this fund to pay for facility-related capital improvements. So those are generally improvements that are greater than $5,000 and have longer than a 10-year lifespan. Again, in terms of flexibility, if that fund looks fairly healthy in the future and our capital facilities items are being covered, you would also preserve the flexibility to reduce the amount of property tax levy that's going into that fund. And on the flip side of the coin, if the franchise fees are not adequate to cover the improvements necessary, this would, again, maintain that flexibility for you to make the decision to increase the transfer.
Okay. Are there questions? Councilmember Keeley.
This was, and thank you to Dana and Ms. Dry for working this up, because it was a new one. The original intent behind this was to really be very specific in its dedication to facilities and capital types of facilities. So I was curious, could we get an addendum that listed all of the facilities that this fund could then be used for? In other words, a qualification list of all of the capital asset facilities that this fund would be dedicated to. And part of it is just making sure that the ordinance is very clear and succinct on the use, so it doesn't get, the word flexibility can be sometimes interpreted as loosey-goosey on what's the definition of facility. Does that also include this or that? And so all I was looking for was a really tight ordinance on that specific use, where I feel like our infrastructure trust fund has that sort of clarity
It's very tight.
and very specificity included in it, so it's just for roads and et cetera, et cetera. And so is there any way that we can maybe strengthen this one? And one of the ideas I was suggesting is just maybe put a list of all the facilities that would qualify under this fund, that could get fund help in capital replacement or maintenance through this fund.
Okay. Councilmember Coughlin.
And all of us up here want it very narrow. My only concern is if we build something new, and then it's not on the list. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. So, so as you work through it or you think about it or something, please keep that in mind as well. And maybe you'll come back and say it's not possible based on that. So that's all.
That's probably some good language that can be included at, existing list and any new assets as the city may
Okay.
build in the future that is defined as a facility, as a capital asset, et cetera.
I
Or
think-
just force the ordinance to be updated in the future if a new building is built.
It says that, but the other thing is that if we're going to be building a new facility and it's coming out of the franchise fees, it's going to list that new building. But but we can put some language in there that then makes sure that facilities means this. I think what you're talking about is having a definition, so not only this council, but future councils and future staff really understand what it is that we're doing. And because if we're going to be building a new facility, it will fall under this, and then that facility gets added to that addendum, is how I would believe. I think one of the things we're trying to get at is that, and I agree with your suggestion of having an addendum, a glossary of, if you will, of what it means, which facilities, because I think about it, and to use Ms. Hardy's example of the maintenance building, those of us who know that the maintenance building is a mixed-use building, many functions within that building. And it is because I was here when we built that building, and it was built using our enterprise funds. Ms. Strye, was there any general tax dollars that went into that, or was it
Yes.
all? How
Yes.
much of that was general? That's because we have some other functions in there, like parks.
Right.
That had to be part of that.
Yep.
So then we had some general fund money going into that formula.
Yes, we have a pretty standard percentage that we've been using over the years whenever we do anything at the maintenance facility in splitting costs. So that the water and sewer fund and the stormwater fund are generally picking up a pretty good portion of that. I don't have the portion off the top of my head, but it is also something that we look at every year to make sure that that proportion of use is still is consistent with the policy. So we are always seeking to do that first. So that was why the language was in here, that we wouldn't be changing that procedures that we normally use, and in seeking to use the enterprise funds first. And then the general fund portion would have the ability to use this fund as we have been doing that in the past. That is consistent with how it's been handled.
So what I understand, and that might be also helpful for everybody to know, because we have an ordinance, then there is an internal policy. And in your internal policy is where that is spelled out for staff?
It's probably best spelled out in the narrative piece in the budget for for that fund. And we really actually do that for operating kinds of expenses as well. So the general fund is maintaining that facility. It gets an allocation from the water and sewer fund for their portion of those expenses on that same proportional basis. So I don't know that we have an actual policy as much as that's how we've been budgeting to do that.
Okay.
And-
Okay, Councilmember Coughlin has a,
Councilmember Keely's going to address this.
Councilmember Keely. Okay, so Councilmember Keely, you just stepped over Ms. Johnston. Okay.
I
Or
think she's
did you
had-
surrender the floor to Councilmember Keely, Councilmember Coughlin?
That's correct.
Okay,
Based
thank
on a
you.
conversation we had.
Okay, Councilmember Keely.
Well, to Councilmember Coughlin's concern, I think it would be fair to add language that, that would include any future facilities for City Hall, Police, Fire, Public Works that are built are automatically included under this fund, so we don't have to add to the addendum per se, but
Yeah.
making a
Yeah,
statement.
because
So there may be some those were the real easy, obvious ones that I could think of, but
Yeah,
if
because
there's
there's
any
the
other.
ICE Center and the Ames Center, and all of those are all facilities
Right.
that are our assets.
And I think just a clarification statement, and Ms. Strye, your comments actually brought this to mind. I'm really trying to get this really tight, because, I mean, that's my perspective is, and it sounds like the mayor's too, because I think there's always a little general mistrust of government when there's a new fund created, a new tax revenue. This is a franchise fee revenue. And then when it's starting to move between funds and you talk about it, well, we'll use this and we'll move it into general, that's where that narrative feeds into they're just going to use it they're going to figure out a way to use it for something other than what they said they were going to use
Yeah.
it. So we're really trying to just get some good, solid language in here that defines a very significant and definitive line between what this fund is used for versus the general fund. And writing that, I know, is a lot easier than what I just said, but that's what we're really after.
Okay, Ms. Johnston?
Madam Mayor, council members, Ms. Strye talked about the allocation, which is already currently used. There were just two other points that I wanted to mention to you. Number one, all of these projects are capital in nature and will come back as part of the budget
Yep.
process to you. That
Yep.
will show you exactly what funding sources are made. And so those are going to be very specific, so you'll be able to tell that the facilities fund is being used in those particular cases. And so that is certainly something that's more transparent in a lot of ways than some of our other pieces. And the allocation language that Ms. Strye talked about was really the limiting factor, and it is very clear in the language about how that's limited. Rather than sort of, because there's some concern related to changing facilities, I might suggest that instead of changing the ordinance, you direct staff to come back with some language in the financial policies. That's reviewed every year as part of the budget process. That would make some reference to this fund and could maybe detail the types of facilities in that way. As the names of the facilities changed or different things, it will just make it a little bit easier for you to make those adaptations if needed.
And that's what I was going to when I mentioned that the policy defines the direction for staff to operate from. So that for me then, I'm happy that that's in there, because that's some of the things when the auditors look at is the checks and balances between the ordinance and how it's actually being executed inside City Hall. Because when the auditors look at those things, they always want to know, is there congruency? Is there a link between the ordinance and the practice? So, and that's why I mentioned, is the policy for this one defines the path forward for staff in the future. And I'm hearing that that's there and that's going to also be placed in the financial policy. If that's the case, I'm satisfied.
Yep.
Yeah. Councilmember Keeley, or is Councilmember
That
Coughlin?
was just left on from my last.
Okay, Councilmember Coughlin?
I want to say that I thought the city manager's suggestion is an excellent one, because if our concern, which is mine and as I understand all of ours, it's not what we're going to do with the
Yeah.
money. We're worried if it extends out, what some other council may do,
Mm-hmm.
at least they'll be faced with that policy. They'll have to then override
The
the
policy.
policy, which and of course, they can override the ordinance as well. So it seems to me the more practical,
Mm-hmm.
rational, reasonable way would be the recommendation of the city manager, so I agree as well with that recommendation.
Yeah, well, I think with the policy aspect of it really helps all of us to understand that staff will be following how it's being executed internally. And that we have, because that's our job. Our job is to make sure that our people know that we are good stewards of how this all works and how it is being executed inside operations. And so the policy helps us to understand that. The financial policy we review every year and we adopt also. So I think that works. And I'm satisfied with the policy. Because that for me, and one of the things that I spoke, that I wrote in an email to Ms. Johnston and Ms. Hardy is that under the funding and the second paragraph was a bit too loose, and that's exactly where you were coming from, Councilmember Keeley. But understanding how this is going to be executed through the policy is something I look forward to reading also. So thank you. With that, a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented.
Motion to approve.
And also,
Second.
yes, and if you can also make sure that the policy is also then, can you add that to your motion?
Motion to approve with the
The
amendment
policy.
of the policy reflecting comments by our
Yeah.
city manager.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Keely and second by Councilmember Coughlin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, and a motion carries. Thank you. And now we move on to the one item on the regular agenda, and this is a public hearing. This is to approve an on-sale, Sunday on-sale liquor license for Olivia Organic Cafe and Event Center. Ms. Collins is presenting. Ms. Collins. No,
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. This evening, we are going to be looking at a liquor license for Olivia's Organic Cafe and Event Center, which will be a full-service restaurant with a banquet facility for weddings, rehearsal dinners. There's going to be entertainment. An investigation has been conducted on the principal involved, and no reason was found to deny the license. The license would be contingent upon all necessary paperwork, fees, and approvals being completed. This is a public hearing. The applicant, Ms. Melanie Vejdani, is in the audience if the council would like to speak to her. I stand for any question.
any questions for Ms. Collins? Councilmember Gustafson?
Not after Ms. Collins, from the applicant. actually.
Well, I think I'll open the public hearing, and
There you
then she will be happy to come forward.
Perfect.
Yes, this is a public hearing, and if anyone would like to speak to the item, and it would be wonderful if the owner of the new, yes, please come speak. Tell us about your concept and what you're going to be doing and when will you open, because this is the way for you to tell everyone in the city of Burnsville, because it's
Okay.
on TV, and it's going to be running for a whole week, many times a week. Yes.
Makes
so,
me nervous.
Yeah, but in that way, people know what you're doing and they can support your effort.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate being
And
here.
give us your name and address for the record first.
Okay, Melanie Vejdani, the address, and it's Olivia's Organic Cafe. The address is 11851 Mill Pond Avenue in Burnsville. And tell about the cafe.
Yes.
It's going to begin to be open for breakfast and brunch. We will expand it as it grows, but we'll start it with breakfast and brunch. All organic, but what's really unique and really exciting is that it's 100% gluten-free and dairy-free. Which
Whoa.
anybody who's gluten-free, that's really heaven for, that you can actually go in there and get anything on the menu.
And you're serving breakfast and brunch, and it's gluten-free.
All gluten-free and all dairy-free. And the other thing that's really nice about it is it's also including comfort food, not just healthy. I mean, it's all made healthy, of course, organic and made very healthy, but it's comfort food. You know, it's not just, oh, this is gluten-free, have your salad. it's eggs Benedict, you know, with our hollandaise sauce that's actually dairy-free, and French toast and waffles and good things like that, mashed potatoes with, you know, that actually we can have. So we're really excited about that. Concept started because I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, but mostly it's my daughter, who's Olivia, and she is now 17, but has been gluten-free and dairy-free since she was little. And we used to love to eat out as a family. That was our entertainment 3 to 4 times a week. And then when we turned gluten-free, dairy-free, we really had a hard time. I specifically remember Mother's Day, where we had a tradition from the time I was a little girl going out to Mother's Day, and then going to a time to where my daughter would be crying on Mother's Day because she couldn't eat anything, you know, at the buffet. And or the countless times we'd go out to eat, and my other daughter, who's not gluten-free, could have anything in the bakery case and have to watch my other daughter not be able to have anything. So my dream was to have her be able to look in that bakery case and have everything in it. And so that's what we're going to do. So we're really excited about it. And hopefully, you know, as we grow, we'll be able to be open longer too. But right now we're going to start with breakfast and brunch. The event center is not going to really be an event center for weddings. We've kind of changed that concept a little bit. But we do want to have some seminars and bring the community together around food and holistic living. And so we also are going to be selling some holistic retail products, or specialty products, like really the best organic makeup and bath bombs. You know, like the young girls get their bath bombs at Lush, and ours, you know, which are full of chemicals. And so we're going to have, you know, non-toxic, wonderful things for teenagers and for everybody. But so I'm really excited about that, and bring in special speakers and have some cooking classes and kind of demystify gluten-free living and dairy-free living. So that's what it is.
Thank you. And when are you opening?
We're shooting for August 1st.
Okay, so you say breakfast and brunch. Is that every day, or is brunch on Sundays, and then will you have lunch?
Yeah,
Or you'll
breakfast,
serve
lunch, brunch. Yep, all the way through till about 3 o'clock. So it'd be
Okay.
7 to 3.
So you're open from,
7 a.m. to 3 o'clock,
To
Monday
3.
through Sunday,
Okay.
all week long. Yep.
okay, all right, and you open when?
August 1st,
August 1st. Okay, August 1st, gluten-free
gluten-free and dairy-free.
and dairy-free.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Is there anyone who has any questions?
I don't have a question, I think it's great. It's certainly a departure from the food that's been there the last 20-some years. And I'm sure many people in the city of Burnsville, including Ms. Schultz next to me, is very excited about you coming in, and so welcome to Burnsville.
Thank you. And everybody's welcome, and it's gonna be food that everybody loves. I mean, you won't be able to tell the difference.
Wonderful.
We will.
Thank you. Thank you for investing in
Okay.
Burnsville.
Councilmember Schultz, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about this because I have celiac. So I have felt your daughter's pain of sitting there while everyone else is eating something and
Exactly.
you're just kind of hanging there
Right.
dreaming of croissants and such things. So
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Thank you. Very excited.
Ms. Dry, did you press your button?
No, I think that was left over from last
Oh,
item.
okay. Thank you. All right. Members of the council, who would like to make a motion?
I will make a
Oh.
motion, yes, that we definitely accept that liquor license.
Yeah. Councilmember Schultz makes a motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Coughlin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Members of the council, there's no other items to come before us this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Councilmember Coughlin makes a motion, second by Councilmember Keely. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Good night, and thank you for being with us. Yeah.